Hi, welcome to the Elle Rush Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at ellerush.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, just a quick 1-minute announcement to let you know about my virtual courses and free masterclasses. I have courses and free masterclasses based on both of my books. I have the Ultimate Thyroid Course. This is your answer to solving any thyroid issue, whether it be Hashimoto's, radioactive iodine, thyroidectomy after thyroid cancer, or just general hypothyroidism. Reverse T3 issues as well. It's an incredible value at 17 modules and 29 hours of content with amazing guest expert tutorials. I also offer the Ultimate Confidence Course. That is 15 modules and 14 hours with also a few guest expert tutorials. An incredible value, and I have free masterclasses on both of those topics as well. Visit ellerush.com to learn more. Melanie, Avalon, how are you doing?
Elle Russ, I'm doing so well. I love talking to you. I love being here.
Same here. We've had so many good conversations over the years, personally and professionally on podcasts. You know, you are one of the foremost biohackers out there, one of the most popular podcasts on that topic. You've been in this game for a while. And then also I interviewed you years ago about your book. So let's just start off with, how did Melanie get into biohacking? Like, how did this journey happen in the first place?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it works really well in my life because all of the things that I ended up being really obsessed with and passionate about creating content and sharing with my audience, like biohacking wasn't a thing, until sort of recently. So I started, really all of it started with my own personal health challenges, and also obsessions with dietary fixation. So two different things there. But with the health stuff, which I know you and I have that in common, whenever you have a personal health crisis, you kind of just become obsessed with finding answers for yourself and finding what will work. And so I had a slew of issues that happened with like mold toxicity and carbon monoxide poisoning and anemia and heavy metals and hypothyroidism, which you know a lot about. And I just started relentlessly searching for what would make me feel better. And this was before biohacking was really a term. It was probably like a decade ago, but the things I became obsessed with really ended up manifesting to be all the things today with biohacking. So like red light therapy and blue light blocking glasses and cold exposure. And now there's just more and more crazy, like I get products, weekly, new biohacking type products that I get to try. I'm literally looking around my apartment right now and there's like 3 things I need to try. They're just sitting there. But yeah, so
strap another monitor onto our arms and eat watermelon and see what happens.
Yeah, continuous glucose monitors, Oura rings, all the things. The thing I'm thinking of right now, there's something over there called a Somnox, which is like, I haven't tried it yet, but it's something that you like hold while you're falling asleep and it vibrates and it's supposed to make you fall asleep. We'll see.
Interesting. All right, we're going to report back on that.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about in the past, like your thyroid journey. You do take thyroid hormone replacement and successfully so. Let's talk about that mold toxicity. How long did it take you to get through that? I know that's a rough one.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I didn't know it was, well, like most people, I didn't know it was happening while it was happening. But basically after I graduated college, I moved into an apartment, which I thought was adorable and amazing. And then when I was leaving after 2 years, I was like, I hope this place burns down to the ground. But I remember moving out and realizing there was black mold, like all in my bed. Cause it was like an IKEA bed frame made like with like the wood. And there was like mold in the bed, on the walls, inside of the walls. And actually somebody else asked me that exact question on a podcast the other day about the timeline to getting over that. And the thing is, I don't really know because I was sort of addressing everything all at once and it's hard to know what was doing what. So I never actually tested my body for mold metabolites. So like I don't have like pre and during and post like levels or anything like that. I just know that collectively everything that I was doing to address all the things have led to a place where I feel a lot better now. So hopefully the mold is mostly gone from me.
What are a few of all the things you've tried, of all the things you implement into your life? Well, like one of my favorite biohacking things that I just don't know that I ever want to give up, that I love. It's not totally necessary, but I love it, is my chili pad Uller, the cooling system for the, like I don't know. No, I didn't think I would ever, when I heard about it, I was like, who would want that? And then like I got it and I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. So what are a few of those things for you that you're like, okay, that, of all the things, if I could choose a few that I just like could never give up, what are those for you?
So that is definitely one of them. And it's funny. So, I mean, it's not funny, but Hurricane Ian just happened and my mom had been stuck in Sanibel Island and the condo and the complex and everything got just demolished essentially. But right before the hurricane hit, I gave her an Uller like a year ago for Christmas. She finally put it together literally like 2 days before the hurricane. And one of the first things I thought when that hit, I was like, oh man,
the Uller.
Right,
oh no, we lost the Uller.
Right when she put it together.
And they're so expensive too. It's like, oh no.
I know. I was just so excited that she was actually going to use it because that one's a game changer. And for listeners who are not familiar, it's a cooling mattress that uses water to keep you cool at night. And that's a good place to start. Basically, everything that I use to support my sleep is just so important to me because I'm just an insomniac at heart. And so I am proud of myself now. Like if I do all the things that I do, I can sleep pretty well, at least according to my Oura ring. But yeah, so that one, sleep temperature is so important. So using that Uller, I know there are other brands that make similar ones as well. And then just a cheap, well, not the same thing, but a cheaper way to get there is turning down the thermostat really low every night. So I do that, although my air conditioner has been freezing over every single night with me doing that because I put it at like 60. And then other things surrounding sleep, like the blackout curtains. I light my apartment just with red light at night because blue light naturally stimulates the release or blue light shuts off the release of melatonin. So it can really hinder you from falling asleep. So at night, my apartment kind of looks like the red light district, which is fine.
Yeah. What light do you use? I have one of the, I had a big one, but now I have one of the mini Juves. And that also can, again, if you put it on at night, kind of give that glow, that essence in your environment.
Yes, I love it. I have Juve as well. So I have a mini one like you have. I set that one on my desk and I actually leave it on the majority of the day because I find it's kind of balances out the rest of the light. And then I get the treatment since I'm sitting by it. And then I have a larger one, their solo unit. I turn that one on at night as well. So I know a lot of people use red light therapy more for the actual therapy part of it, like the helping with muscle recovery and skin and things like that. But I just find the circadian rhythm benefits to be really profound. So although I will say to that point, because I don't, I know you have like pain issues. Like I know you pulled out your back recently.
That was fun.
Yeah. Are you feeling better?
I'm feeling much better. Actually a biohacking tool, I have the Hyper Ice Go massage gun, and it's a game changer when something locks up because no foam roller will do it. And even though it's awkward, you have one hand and you're trying to, it still will immediately release that tightness. And that's one of the best biohacking tools I have ever, if I go on a sprint and I feel like tight T-bands or anything, or there's some weird muscle sciatica, get that thing in there. And I learned about that because I was at Mark Sisson's house and they had one and I used it. And I'm like, this thing is amazing. So that's actually a biohacking tool I'm really grateful to have because I think it helped clear this up sooner than later.
That's incredible. I have the Theragun, which that's what I was going to say is I'm grateful that I haven't had a lot of experiences of intense chronic physical pain. otherwise I'd probably be using that more. But I did, like a few months ago, I pulled something in my knee and I was shocked. I was like, oh, maybe I should actually try this like red light near infrared for what they say it works for muscle soreness. And I was shocked. Like my pain would go, my knee would be hurting. I would shine the light on it, and while the light was on it, the pain would be mostly gone. It was very surreal. And that's because of how the light affects the mitochondria production, I believe, in your cells. I had another thought. Okay, wait, the massage gun, the red light therapy. Oh no, I'm just thinking like all the other things.
Uller, yeah.
Uller. So the sleep stuff. Oh, the blue light blocking glasses at night. I have to wear those. It's just part of my routine. Like I don't even think about it, but those really, really help with me winding down. I don't wear them during the day, just at night. Do you wear those ever?
I had a pair a long time ago, and I don't know what happened to them, and then I didn't get a new one. And I don't have sleep issues, even though I still know that blue light's not great. So I should probably get another pair just for like, watching TV or being anywhere near a screen at night for sure.
Well, you also don't have my crazy circadian rhythm where I feel like you're more
Melanie doesn't. Melanie has like the opposite. You're like on a graveyard shift, even though you're not working graveyard hours. Right? Sometimes you wake up really late, but you're a night owl, but it works for you. I mean, as long as that's your rhythm. Have you ever tried to get back on like a sunrise sunset rhythm?
So two thoughts to that. One is just the brief comment for you. I'm so jealous. I feel like you are like you're like living with the light. Like you're like living the way their circadian rhythm is supposed to be. To answer your second question. So how you use the phrase like get back to. I don't know that my body ever naturally, like I don't think it ever naturally would revert to that circadian rhythm. And I think there's pretty good science to support this. I've had I don't know if you've had Dr. Michael Bruce. Have you met him?
I have not.
He wrote The Power of When, which is about the different circadian chronotypes. And so I've had him on the show twice. And according to him, I'm a dolphin, which is just like the insomniac, like never sleeping. But there's like 4 types of circadian rhythms that seem to be pretty inherent within people's genetics. And they just revert to that regardless. So like, even if it's so annoying, like even if I wake up for some reason super early to the point that I'm super tired, I'll still be awake I'll still get a second wind that night. And I still,
right. Like you won't be able to go to bed earlier.
Yeah. And even if I do and like sleep in and wake up early again, I will still naturally gravitate back. And I think that's really empowering because I struggle with this so bad. Like I tried for so long to like try to fight my circadian rhythm, and I would always like lament to my mom about it. And she's also a night person, and she'd just be like, Melanie, like just accept it. Like you are a night person.
Right. I mean, I agree with that too. I mean, it's I guess people want to say that, hey, everyone should try to get on this, but if it's not right for you, it's not right for you. As long as you're getting enough sleep and you're honoring what you need to, you can be on your own rhythm.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the issue, so according to Dr. Bruce, I think about like half the population are quote bears, and they're the people that follow like society, like the way most people,
right?
Like so they're not waking up like super early, but they're still waking up, at a decent time. And then they're not staying up like super late, but they're so they're just like in line with society. But then there's the lion type, which is like you, like get up early. And then there's the wolf, which is like stay up late. And then there's the insomniac that just never wants to sleep, the dolphin. But something else you mentioned, which I think is really important to share, is I think studies show that it's probably better. So even if you're going to bed super late, it's probably better to have a consistent schedule where you're going to bed late and getting up early rather than like changing it all around. So like trying to make yourself a morning person half of the time and then staying up late the other time. It's probably better just to stay up late every time. And like,
that's right. Keep the same schedule.
Yeah. So find what works for you. That's what I'm all about.
That's right. Let's briefly touch on what, when, wine, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
I love the title of right? Did I get it right? The title?
Yes, you did. You did.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've read it, but I remember just loving the whole sort of premise of it where you're like, hey, I'm not going to give up my wine, so I'm going to work around it.
Yes.
I
It's
love.
funny. It's funny. Yeah. So the title of that book, The What, is paleo. Although I know paleo, I feel like I wrote it when paleo was like very in vogue and I was like very paleo. Now I feel like paleo has different meanings, but the win is intermittent fasting. And then the wine is self-explanatory. But yeah, I always thought that wine up until a certain point, I was like, alcohol is like my vice. And, I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that, but I was drinking wine and I thought like it was something that I need to cut out. And the more I researched, the more I realized that like basically you can make any argument. If you want to make an argument about alcohol either way, it works like very easily. And you like looking at the clinical data, like you could get hundreds of studies on either side.
Yes, because some studies will say, hey, listen, 2 drinks a night is fine or whatever, and that's fine for healthy. And then some people would say it's absolutely disastrous regardless. And there's no amount, of alcohol that's positive for you. And again, this is like what works for different people. Like I have never been a drinker because alcohol, that drug does not work with me, but marijuana does. So, and like I know people who marijuana, they can't, it does not work for them at all. It's like a life ruiner, to them, but having a glass of wine or whatever isn't. So I think again, it's, the interesting part about it is there's just so much more peer pressure on the side of alcohol. So when you are a non-drinker, you end up really like fighting that a lot. It's a very strange thing to sort of notice being a non-drinker. I mean, not that I've never not had a drink, but I could like count the amount of times on my hands and feet probably. And so, yeah, it just doesn't work with me. And I just realized that, just like coffee doesn't work with people. I have a friend who can't have an iota skosh of caffeine in anything, even if it's like green tea in a powder in a green drink or something. So, you find out what you're sensitive to and what works for you. And again, it's like there's evidence on both sides. And certainly you're not drinking to the excess that would cause major damage. You're not an alcoholic. So Yeah.
And for listeners, Elle and I have our wine and weed nights, our weed
That's right.
and wine nights.
We do. We catch up. We call it wine, and we're like, "Hey, when are we gonna do wine and weed?" I will say though that I'm really grateful to live in California, where first of all I'm not a criminal anymore because I was a criminal for many years, being someone who consumed marijuana. But that also it's coming in different forms so that you don't have to light it and smoke it and affect your lungs. So these whole past few years have been like a whole. For years I'd be like, man, every drinker could just go to any store, any 7-Eleven, and pick up what they need. But like I gotta go find a guy somewhere like so underground. And then, granted I'm in California, so it is interesting. And then what's funny is that when the dispensaries started to open in California, and it was very much like, oh, you just kind of go to the store. I noticed when I would go in there, everyone in there was like 60s and 70s. Seriously, I never saw another young person. Like I was like, oh my God, are you guys just resurgent from back in the day? And I think it's
like waiting for that moment.
And also too, just the studies with like CBD, the non-psychoactive part, and or just marijuana for like back in the day when I worked one-on-one with people dying of AIDS in San Francisco, and they had the first marijuana cafe ever, but you had to have like a serious medical license, a serious medical condition, and you had to have a chaperone. And I would go with these people and go there. And I remember sort of being blown away by the experience and how seemingly like crazy that was to be in a place where they were selling this stuff just like right out in the open. But it also meant so much to those AIDS patients and cancer patients. Like they had horrible appetites. It helped them with the pain. And then I remember they made Marinol, like some pill, right, to try to pharmaceutical jumping on it. And it would like knock them out. It was like the worst experience for them. And so, I think I'm so glad that over time, society and medical community has caught up to the benefits for people of these things, that are suffering. I mean, I'm not doing it because I have an issue like that. But anyway, just that's my soapbox about, thank God it's sort of decriminalized and keeps going in that direction, and can be useful and has like, mints or edibles or things where you don't have to light something up and smoke it and ruin your lungs.
No, I'm really fascinated by this, especially just like the legalities surrounding it and just the ingrained perspective and opinion that it's like, what is that founded on? Because I think if you just step back for a second and objectively looked at like alcohol versus marijuana, I think probably you could make the case that alcohol is a lot more toxic.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, you also could, because the drunk driving death per year. I've never heard of a stone driving death. That does very rarely happens. But yeah, the drunk driving deaths and then the deaths from alcoholism or liver damage. Yeah, the statistics are pretty high. You could make that argument that quote unquote marijuana is safer, let's say, or less toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for listeners, if they're curious, because I've grappled with this question of like, what does the literature actually show about alcohol? Because like I said, it's so like literally you could prove any side that you wanted. I do think if you like really take a broad look at it, it's probably a J-shaped curve. So basically, probably there are benefits for, mild to moderate consumption, possibly more than complete abstainers. And then definitely, once you start drinking, higher end of moderate or heavily, that's when the issues are creeping in. But, yeah, it's just really interesting how like the whole legality system of everything. And it's funny you're mentioning like how things have changed. I remember with the intermittent fasting podcast, it's crazy how fast things change. Cause I remember it didn't seem that long ago that like CBD started becoming a thing and like brands would reach out to us, and my co-host at the time, Jen Stevens, and we were like, I don't know, like, is this too sketchy? And now it's like, everybody's got CBD. So, yeah. But
let's talk about, well, first of all, mention the name of your podcast.
Sure. So the Intermittent Fasting Podcast is a listener Q&A format all about intermittent fasting. My co-host now is Cynthia Thurlow, who is really incredible. And then I have the Melanie Avalon Biohacking Podcast, and that's where I go on just all the tangents, interviewing all the doctors and authors and researchers about anything and everything health and wellness. I learned so much on that show. It's really incredible. And then I get to also interview like really cool people in the diet sphere, and it's great. Elle's been on the show twice.
It's an amazing show. It's highly top rated. And honestly, it's like for all things health, like go check that out. There's so many episodes already. Let's talk about intermittent fasting. Do you religiously do it every day? Are you more in tuned and go off when not? I was just talking to Brad Kearns recently, and he's like switching stuff up. But then again, his level of athletic performance is such that I understand why he would, you know what I mean? Not necessarily always be on an IF pattern versus maybe people that are more sedentary and it's more beneficial. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first, I'm just laughing in my head because I've been talking with Brad as well. And
I knew he's been telling you all this stuff too. That's why I'm curious what your opinion is.
He's like so into, he like went on like the high carb terrain.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think, I don't know if that this is a blanket statement that there are only two types of people, but in general, I feel like there are moderationists and there are extremists. Like there are people that do really well existing within a very strict system and not really deviating, and they find freedom in those boundaries. And then there are people that are more with like moderation and intuition and can like, they feel more free when they're flexible. I am the former. I need the rules, the boundaries, the extremism. Like I literally
Right.
feel it's like the way I see it, it's like a road. Like, when you're driving on a road, you could see like the lane and like having to stay in your lane as like a restriction and a boundary, or you could see it as, well, the only way we actually could all be driving and like getting from point A to point B is if we follow these rules. And so that's how I exist. And so with fasting, I started doing it way before it was a colloquial term and like the thing to do. So I said I was going to do it for a week and I was going to do one meal a day, and I never stopped. And that was like a decade ago. So the thing that's changed broad picture is that in the beginning I would like count the fasting hours, and I had to fast, a minimum amount of hours. And I really, stressed a little bit about that. Now I don't count anything. I literally just wait until dinner. I eat it whenever I'm done, which is after my work, which I try to start eating earlier rather than later, but I just get in my zone at night. And I just eat until bed, and I don't really deviate. I did try like a little bit at one point to like not do that. And I was not happy. So, yeah, but I'm all about, again.
So you're still one meal a day. And so from waking time until that main meal, how long is that roughly?
So this is where I'm going to really come off as crazy if I actually give my actual hours. It's funny. So people, and I will tell you, but people ask me all the time, they're like, what do you do exactly? Like, tell me. And I'm like, I don't want to tell you because
you don't want people to follow
like,
it.
Don't do what
don't do what she does. Yeah.
Because I think people, especially with my shows and my audience and stuff, they're like, oh, I want to do what Melanie does. I'm like, nope, you want to do what you want to do that works for you. So what I do, which is crazy, although I do know there are some other crazy people like me out there, because the listeners that do this, they make it very known and like DM me that they're like, I do that too. So I wake up pretty late, like 11 a.m. or 12. And then I fast all day. I usually start my dinner. If I'm going out to like a restaurant or something, I'll eat on a more conventional social time. I try to go for later dinners, but if I'm at home, I usually start eating at like 11 p.m. or 11:30. And
so you're going a good 11, 12 hours, and then you eat your main meal, and then you go to bed. You don't wait 4 hours to go to bed after eating, right?
Well, so that's the thing. No. So I'll eat from like 11:30 p.m. or so until I go to bed at like 2 or 3 a.m. So it's a long meal. And I eat a lot of protein, because I know there's like, I could talk about this for a long time. I know I have a lot of thoughts on protein intake, because I think protein intake is so, so important. For so many things, for just your constitution and metabolic health. And it's the most satiating nutrient, supports the metabolism. You just need it for your body. I know there's all these debates about, and I'm haunted by this, especially since one of my focuses is longevity. I'm haunted by the low protein debates, for longevity. I like to think that I get the best of both worlds by combining fasting with a concentrated, punctuated high protein intake. But I do think a lot of people, especially women, probably won't get in enough protein in like a quote 1 meal a day situation. I eat a ton of protein. Like I eat pounds and pounds of meat and seafood every single night. That's what really
that's
works
amazing. And that's the nice thing too about the 1 meal a day. It's very much like the warrior diet. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That's why I started.
Is that where you started? Yeah, that works for a lot of people. The only thing that guy would say is, okay, maybe you'd have an egg or something in the middle of the day, but yeah, that idea of that main meal. And then I like that. I hated that whole zone thing, like eat little tiny meal. No one wants to eat a tiny fucking meal. You are right. I mean, you just want to kind of sit there and hang out and kind of keep going. You know what I mean? Like, so that's what I love about that. And that's kind of how I am too, even though I'm probably 2 meals a day. The first one is so light, so that I feel like that second one within that window to me is like, that's, the fun, sit down, relax, enjoy. So you're able to, in that time in your eating window, get in enough protein. Are we talking like 100 grams, or what do you feel substantial and appropriate for you?
We're talking like, if I ate 100 grams, I would be so proud of myself for having a low protein day. Like I eat so much protein. I mean, it's pounds. So, stepping back though a little bit from that. So I was listening to do you listen to Peter Attia?
Oh yeah, I have many times, not regularly, but yeah, I tune in every now and then. I've known about him for years. I'm obsessed. If I ever get him on the show, which is like my goal, because I know he has a book coming out, I will be like fangirling so much. That's one of the reasons I love my show. I get to like fangirl over these people. Totally. But he had a really good interview the other day with, I think his name is Don Layman. I hope I got that right. He works with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who I've had on the show, and I adore her. So I learned so many things I didn't I thought I knew a lot about protein. Listening to that, I learned so much more. And one of them, and this relates to what you're talking about with like eating the small amounts throughout the day. So one of the reasons we need that protein, those boluses of protein, is to stimulate
muscle protein synthesis, to upregulate mTOR, to put our body into this, growth and repair mode. And apparently if you're just having like little amounts, it won't actually stimulate that. And a really interesting like tangent from it that I didn't know at all was kids can benefit from. So if you give kids like small snacks of protein throughout the day, that's good for them. That'll benefit them. But once you're an adult, you're really not getting any benefit from that, which I thought was really, really interesting. But yes, so that I agree with you. I love having that feast moment and like just getting to go all out. And because the thing I hated about dieting, like, was never getting to eat you didn't get to eat as much as you want. So it's like just constantly like that mindset. And then you're just waiting for your next meal. And then when you actually have your meal or your snack, it's like over before it started. Like, just so miserable. I'm just not a fan.
It's so miserable. I love, and that's what I love about this kind of program.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think there's so much magic. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about viewing things as restrictions or not. There's just a lot of magic if you set up certain rules with food, like macronutrients, fasting, things like that. And then if you stick to them, then really everything just works for you. And you really can just, eat to utter enjoyment. So yeah, I'm really fascinated by how, especially when people like clean up their diet and go to a more whole foods approach, how they start really enjoying these foods they probably thought they would have before. Like, I eat so plain and so simply. People always ask me like, how do you cook your scallops? How do you cook your fish? I'm like, I just eat it plain mostly. And it tastes so good to me. But I could have never seen myself experiencing that growing up when I was eating a standard American diet. Have your taste buds changed in your?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. I think once you clean things out, at least when I went paleo, cleaned up all the junk and, would go to if I wanted a dessert, maybe fruit and whipped cream. That's not to say I want to have a piece of cake or a cupcake every now and then, of course. Right. But in general, then your palate changes so much where a bowl of blueberries is very, very sweet, where when you are on the sugar carbohydrate dependent train, a bowl of blueberries will never cut it. It is so interesting. The other thing too is, getting over hypothyroidism, you become so much more satiated and then you're craving less of these things. Mm-hmm. And so that certainly helped getting over that. But I think it's just the freedom. And this is, Mark's Daily Apple success stories, whether people lost 100 pounds or cured a skin issue, was basically they're like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not obsessed with food anymore. I hated that whole waiting and thinking these little meals and it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. When you look at the warrior diet and other stuff, it doesn't seem ancestral either. It totally doesn't. And I love that. I find it so satisfying to have a big, long meal, you know what I mean? And I'd rather wait for that. And I think that that's the benefit of becoming fat adapted and being able to do it. But I still do honor a few things. Like I was telling Brad, let's say I'm woken up by, I live in the mountains, and sometimes peacocks will be honking outside my window. Let's say I get woken up.
I've seen your videos.
Let's say I get woken up at 4 a.m. or something and I can't get back to bed or something. Then by 11, 10 or something, maybe I would be hungry, where normally I would never be hungry before 1 or 2. But you know what? I look at that day and I go, I'm kind of hungry now. And by the way, that bums me out because I don't want to be hungry at that moment because I'm stuck to that time in my head, but I go honor it. So I'll eat some meat or something, so I still will honor the hunger when it's appropriate, but usually it's in those kind of scenarios. Or for example, let's say I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get on a plane to go somewhere. I might even in that moment biohack at the airport. And even though I'm not even really hungry, I still might try to get an egg on top of a grass-fed burger patty and just do that knowing how the day's going to be, you know what I mean? If it's going to be a 10, 12 hour, and I know that it's going to be a long time, then I might go, you know what, I'll do this, so sometimes I'll strategically eat, right? But I still kind of follow the hunger. But in general, I've never been a breakfast morning person. The worst thing in the world for me would be to have a big meal during the day. Mm-hmm. I just can't do it. But I work out. If I lift weights, then I will maybe have a drink with whey protein in it. I might have a little bite of some salmon, or I might just wait an hour and then have a steak or something. But for the most part, I do not like morning eating. It just has never worked with me. And I think, once you go down this road, and I could probably change that, right? Based on my eating times, I could make, like Brad was saying, he's made himself hungry in the morning, but like, I don't want to. I like working out fasting. Like I can't want to eat. So I feel like you got to follow what's right for you, but I also do adjust and I don't deny myself when things go off and I'm hungry.
So I love all of that. I feel the exact same way. It made me think of a few things to touch on. One of the things I love about traveling and fasting is a really great hack for dealing with changing time zones.
Yes.
Because if you do stick to your normal, if you have a very regimented fasting schedule and then you stick to it, you can really hack jet lag by like fasting in the travel and then resuming your eating in line in the new location with the way you've been eating. And it can, because this is interesting. Our hunger rhythms have their own circadian rhythm, and they're very influential on our sleep and our circadian rhythm. So it's and there's actually been studies on this, which is cool. So that's a nice little hack that people can use. And then, I was going to comment on the, I'm glad you talked about the working out fasted or not. So, another thing people are concerned about with fasting is, needing to eat protein immediately after a workout to, grow muscle. And the really cool thing is that the stimulus for, growth hormone and mTOR from working out, or the ability basically to, you create muscle protein synthesis from your workout lasts for up to 24 hours. So you actually don't have to eat right after workout. Yep. That said, I just learned this on that episode, that Peter Attia podcast. I didn't know this. If you're new to working out and new to resistance training, you'll actually get more of a benefit immediately within the first 2 hours after working out. But once you've gotten on a regimen for a long time, apparently that benefit kind of goes away and it matters less and less.
And it only really matters if you are a sugar burner. If you're carbohydrate dependent, then yes. If you don't eat within that hour, then your muscles will start to catabolize. I remember a friend of mine way back in the day when the Zone was popular in LA and like Zone delivery diet, right? And they measured everything, took your body fat, and then they send you these meals. And my guy friend was like working out a lot at the gym. And he said to me, he's like, I'm going to have to call them. I think something's wrong with like the amount of different foods or whatever I'm getting, because, and I go, wow, what's wrong? He goes, I feel like my muscles are eating themselves. And I didn't even know what that meant until later, talking to Mark Sisson about this very topic. And he was saying, well, yeah, if you are on that program, then yeah, you should eat within an hour. But when you become fat adapted and you get used to this, then that is not an issue. And all of the wonderful things that are happening after exercise, you don't want to blunt with food. But the other side of it would be, okay, if you're really trying to make gains and you're in that kind of, vibe, then sure, maybe within an hour or two, that would be positive. But still, if you're fat adapted, that thing that my friend felt wouldn't have happened. But it happened to him because he was a carbohydrate dependent, eat 2-3 small, the whole Zone thing. And I don't even think he was getting enough protein. It was just this need to do it. So if he didn't eat, he would feel that feeling. Yeah. Yeah. And then another thing to point out as well, just while we're like deconstructing all these protein myths. So there's this idea that you can only assimilate, they'll say like you can only assimilate 30 grams of protein or something at a meal, which is you take it when you take in protein, your body uses all that protein. It doesn't like not go anywhere. Like your body does digest it and use it. The cap idea is that there's a maximum amount of muscle protein synthesis that can occur. So there's basically a maximum amount of muscle growth you could get from one punctuated protein intake. So that's why it's probably best if you're trying to actively grow muscle that you'd have at least like 2 separated big protein, moderate to larger protein intake meals. So I think that's what's going on there. I can talk really quickly. Do you know what I've become obsessed with? If we want to talk about like biohacking, muscle growth. Yes.
So I don't know how people will feel about this. I feel like this has a little bit of a stigma, like I'm taking the lazy way out, but I've been doing a lot of M Sculpt. Are you familiar?
No.
So it's muscle stimulation. It's kind of, it came, I don't know if it came out of this. It probably did. So the, there's something called E-stim. I had Dr. Terry Walls on my show, who's just absolutely incredible. And she was talking about the benefits of E-stim for people with MS, for basically keeping their muscles like active. And then they've actually been studying to use it for astronauts on the space station, because the lack of gravity, they have a lot of muscle wasting. There's a version of it called M-Sculpt that's now becoming more and more popular and available to the general public. And it's literally for muscle building. And I'm so addicted. I have seen such insane changes in my body composition, but you basically just lay there and it's this machine, and it makes your muscles contract really intensely, and it makes them contract way more, like it goes past your brain's, because your brain consciously stops your muscles from reaching the full potential of their contraction. So it makes your muscles go farther than they could if you were at the gym, without the muscle soreness issues, because part of the programming of it actually breaks up the lactic acid that's accumulating. So you have very minimal muscle soreness. But yeah, you go and you do these sessions, you do it on different areas of your body. And the amount of muscle you just lay there. The amount of muscle I have grown is crazy, and actually burns fat as well.
And is this something, I mean, I know you can go for treatments, but can you do it at home?
No. So the machine probably costs, like $200,000. You have to basically find
treatments. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you suggest or think that, how often did you do it to see results?
So the protocol they suggest, and I would not be promoting this if I hadn't seen like insane, and I have no affiliation with them. But the actual brand I use, which I love, is M-Sculpt Neo. That's their new version, and it's apparently is even better for fat burning, because it uses some radio frequency waves that actually break down fat as well. So when you're doing it any given area, they recommend that you do at the beginning 4 sessions within 4 weeks. So like 1 session a week, and then you take a break, and you actually will see muscle growth for up to 90 days from that. So I started doing it like probably over a year ago, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I've become so addicted. Like I've done my arms, my biceps, my triceps. I've been working on my inner and outer thighs, which have been incredible, my hamstrings. And what I think is really great about it is, I think, like I said, I think muscle is so, so important that's a benefit of muscle I didn't realize. So we talk about something called insulin resistance a lot, which I know everybody's talking about insulin resistance. So it's thought that insulin resistance actually starts at the muscle. So it's not your fat cells or your liver that's becoming insulin resistant first. It's your muscles not taking up the blood glucose. So having adequate muscle stores to take up blood sugar is so, so important for metabolic health. So I love the M-Sculpt, because it's like, I can do work during it. So I do work while laying there, and I actually, am building muscle. Although I will say, I will put out a warning that some of it is pretty unpleasant in the beginning.
The
but
feeling of it, you mean?
Yeah. So some of it can be like, and they have like different intensity levels that you can work up to. But some of it can be like really painful. But once you start doing it more and more and really building the muscle, it gets a lot easier. So I hope it becomes more popular, because I want it to become more affordable.
Yeah. What are those treatments like roughly?
It probably really ranges based on where you're going, but it's usually, a couple thousand I recommend to start an area. I recommend if listeners are trying to find a place, find a place where they will, because it's pretty similar prices for, like I said, that first area, a couple $1,000s. Some places will do like maintenance packages, where once you've done an area, then you can get sessions, for a couple $100 if you buy them like in bulk or something. So when you're calling around, ask if they have good maintenance packages, because that will be the key to doing it sustainably. So I should like
Fascinating.
I should like do a commercial for them. I love them.
Yeah, I know. I was like, so wait, hold on. Well, if it's a couple grams for like one area, or like you could do like both arms or just your left one and then you got to do the right one, or is it just, how does that work?
That's the other thing so that's the other thing I've learned, especially with the arms, because you have your triceps and biceps. Most places will charge you separately for triceps and biceps, but it is both arms.
Okay.
But try to find a place. I know. Try to find a place where they'll do biceps and triceps as like the entire arm package, because you don't want to do just one side of your arm. But yeah, this stuff is fascinating.
It's so fascinating. Okay. So what about cold therapy? Do you do that? I know we mentioned it briefly in the beginning as one of those biohacking things. I'm just not available to sit in a ice cold tub with ice in it, but I'm down for cold showers. So do you incorporate any of that into your life?
I should have said, when you asked me that question at the beginning about like, what is my favorite? It's probably cold therapy stuff. So yes. So interestingly, I actually have not done an ice bath, and I actually don't have a machine. I had Wim Hof on the show, and I was telling him that, and I was asking him if I could like take a chest freezer and turn it into a cold bath. And he was like all about it. He was like, yes. He was like, you bring Alaska to Atlanta. I was like, okay.
Yep.
But I actually haven't done the cold baths. I do. So I love the cold showers, like you were saying, and I think that's a really great, easy, approachable, affordable way to get started with that. And I do cryotherapy every day. So I did that right before our podcast. Do you do cryotherapy?
I haven't done it. Wait, you don't do it at home, right? You have to go somewhere for that.
Yeah, go somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done it yet. I mean, it's all over Los Angeles. I just haven't tried it.
Yeah, that's another thing that is like massively exploded in popularity. So I do it every day, almost every single day, a 3-minute session, and it's like negative 270 degrees, I think. And it just, it feels so good. And there needs to be more studies. I mean, compared to like sauna, which is another thing I adore and love.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's one of my favorite things in the whole world.
Do you do infrared or traditional heat or?
I like both. I prefer the infrared though. It seems like you can stay in there a little bit longer. To me, it's like I did it when I was detoxing through heavy metals, and I no doubt that helped, but I will also say that my skin is so much better. I mean, I don't have like major skin problems, but like I notice the difference, and like I feel like I need to do less, maintenance on skin, less facials, things like that when I'm regularly doing a sauna.
I agree so much. It's funny when I had Mark on the show, I was because I feel like he's not like really down with like the biohacking concept. And so I was asking him about the sauna and like if his thoughts on if it was the equivalent to like, a cardiovascular workout. And he was like, not about it, but,
he's not about, but he does have one in his house.
Oh, he does. Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's when I house it for him. I'm like, oh yeah, let's get that sauna going.
Oh, wow. Nice.
He might not use it though.
Or keeps it on the down low when he does.
He's a fan of the Uller though. He's the one that introduced me to
nice.
The Uller. He has one in each bed in Miami and LA. He's all over that.
Nice. Yeah. Well, the reason I bring up the cardiovascular stuff is and this will relate to what I was saying about the cold therapy and the studies. So there are so many studies on the benefits of sauna, and it's pretty shocking that you can really make the case that doing sauna sessions is the equivalent of the cardiovascular benefits of exercise without all of the potential, like overstress effects of, like marathon running and things like that. But I as well. I originally started doing sauna. I don't know if you said you originally did it for this reason, but I originally started doing it for heavy metal detox. And it just feels like I do it every night, and I do it infrared. I have the Sunlight makes a solo unit that you can lay down inside of. And it's really great if you have an apartment or something like that, where you can't have like a, whole cabin unit. The relaxation effects, the muscle relieving effects. I really like that it creates an artificial fever in your body every night, which is really good for immunity. And I just feel like after I get out and like shower off, I just feel clean inside, if that makes sense. Like it's hard to explain, but you just feel
it is,
clean.
But it just almost like, it's one of my favorite things. I would love one of the big ones. Mark has one of the sunlight, like some jacuzzi ones, whatever it is. It's like a double, it's huge. You could lay down. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's what's nice is that I can lay down in it, even though I'm short, so I can fit in there. But it's nice to like lay down or sit up and kind of stretch around and you know what I mean? Kind of yeah, and I love the lighting in there. But yeah, at first when I did sauna for heavy metal, and it's not that I hadn't enjoyed, I was more of like the steam room person, right? Because you'd go into the steam room, you'd get that immediate like sweat, clear the pores, but it's so different. The deepening of what the sauna does, I feel like is way better. So now I'm not a huge fan of the steam and I'm a huge fan of the sauna. It took a while in the regular heated sauna for me to build up, because it would take a while for me to even sweat. And then I was like, I wasn't doing anything, and I kind of got like bored. And then I built up and I would go out of the sauna, do a cold rinse off, go back in. And it's like, oh my gosh, I could just do that every single day. It to me, again, I agree with you. You just feel like so clean. You feel almost, and you do feel like you've lost weight. You feel like you burned fat. You do. You feel like slimmer and better. There's just something about it, but I'm a huge fan and so glad that, I mean, look, the Nordic countries have known this forever, right? They're ones that have been all over this. But I'm so glad in all these years of our work in the, health space that it's all these units, and solo and it's just so available to everyone now.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I'm really glad you mentioned that about not sweating as much in the beginning, because that's definitely a thing. Like your body has to I don't know exactly what's going on there, but it's like your body has to really get used to activating those like sweat channels. And the more you do it, the more you'll sweat. And one reason I love the solo, although I love like the full immersive experience, but with the solo, your head is outside of it. So I set up like this like phone holder arm thing that I put above me so I can like do work and like read and emails and stuff while I'm laying in there. And it just feels so good. And then on the flip side, going back to the cold exposure, I'm really excited for there to be more and more studies on that, because I feel like they haven't been studying it. There's so much literature on the sauna, but there's less on the cold side of things, but they are starting to do more. And like, there was one study that was really interesting, and it was comparing people with depression it was seeing how they reacted with cryotherapy, and they actually found like really beneficial effects on people's depression. And I know personally, when I get out of my cryo session, you get this flood of endorphins and dopamine and the anti-inflammatory benefits I love. So yeah, I'm all about the cold, all about the heat. I'm all about it. So my definition of biohacking, because I know it's people, or I think of it as, using modern tools and techniques and supplements and technology to vitalize our health. But really, in a way, it's sort of to return our bodies to the way we were before modern technology. Because it's like creating these stress states in your body, or
it's hormesis.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit ironic in that way, but I love all the things. There's so many things. Like right now I'm drinking. Have you heard of deuterium depleted water?
No, I have not. Tell us.
Oh my gosh. This is my thing that I find the science very convincing, and I'm doing it. I'm committed. It's either like not doing anything, or it's going to be like fountain of youth game changer. And I'm just not sure, but based on the science of it, I think it sounds good. So basically water is made of H2O, hydrogen. And so there's actually 3 forms of hydrogen. There's hydrogen that we think of that's in like just normal hydrogen that we think of. So that's actually called protium. Then there's a type of hydrogen found in hydrogen bombs. So we're not really exposed to that. And then there's deuterium, which is a heavy isotope of hydrogen. So it's basically just a heavier form of hydrogen. And so the theory behind deuterium is that our mitochondria water is just, our bodies are saturated in water, and it's so involved in metabolic processes. And so deuterium is actually a little bit too big for the mitochondria. So the thought is that it kind of, and this is really like casual terminology, but the thought is that it kind of gunks up the mitochondria and affects energy production and how they function. And so there's been a lot of studies on deuterium it's really in like the extreme cases, like cancer research. So people with cancer going on deuterium depletion protocols and seeing benefits. So not a lot of studies on, or I don't know if there's any studies on like just a normal person, like in deuterium, but, so I drink deuterium depleted water, and you can actually test your deuterium levels, and you can see if your levels have lowered. So mine are lower. So hopefully that's
all right.
Hopefully that's a good thing. But I've done 2 episodes on it. And one of the guys I brought on, he thinks the reason that ketogenic diets work primarily, he thinks the longevity benefits of ketogenic diets and the health benefits are because ketogenic diets force your body to create metabolic water, which is deuterium depleted. And he thinks it's a natural deuterium depletion when you go ketogenic, but I don't know.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
Well, let's talk about 2 things I have right here in the biohacking world. I've got your own magnesium and serrapeptase.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about serrapeptase, because that was something before you even developed it that I actually already take on a daily basis and has saved my life. So I'm really want to talk about this. So I had really, really high fibrinogen, which essentially means like fibrous, cloggy, shitty blood. I guess no other way to say it, just 3rd grade explanation of that. And you could, you think about things like fibrosis, right? Or fibrocystic breasts, or cystic fibrosis, these kind of things with that word in it. So I already genetically am quote unquote kind of thick blooded. Whatever happened in the disease state of hypothyroidism, who knows, a lot of things go wrong. So of course I fixed my thyroid with thyroid hormones, but then you have all this lingering junk. So when I went to go see Dr. Forsman, he's like, you could have a stroke or a heart attack, and we need to fix this right now. Where if I had gone to a regular doctor and they tested my CBC, just general, complete blood, they would have been like, oh, you're doing great. I left his office crying, and he gave me this, this enzyme mix that's a systemic enzyme meant to bypass, your stomach acid and go in and sort of like brush cleaners clean out your blood. But serrapeptase is the base of that. And so it's known as an incredible anti-inflammatory. And it's something that, because of my hand-arm injury, which again, I'm not in pain 24/7. It's not chronic anymore. But because of that, after I told Dr. Forsman about the fact that I had that, because I don't, live with pain all the time where I'm complaining about my arms all the time. It's just like, okay, I have this thing, and it happens if they get overused, I get screwed up. But when I told him about that, he said, well, in that case, you need to continue taking that. After you clear up this fibrinogen, you need to take like a maintenance dose. And it's also an anti-ager, because excess fibrinogen is like what he calls one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of aging. So I am so glad you developed the supplement. So let's talk about serrapeptase and its benefits. And I'm not shocked that was the first supplement you came up with, right?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
And okay, first of all, I love hearing your story about it. And it's funny because serrapeptase is one of those things that most people have not heard of, but if they have, and if it's usually some sort of situation like that where like they've had this profound experience with it. So it's funny. So on the intermittent fasting podcast at the time, my co-host Jen Stevens, not a big supplement person, like probably didn't take like any supplements. And we realized early on in that show, which we started about 5 years ago, that we both took serrapeptase. And it was this moment because we're like, nobody's heard of serrapeptase and we both take it. Like what is happening? So we started talking about it all the time on the show. She started taking it for her fibroids, I think.
There you go. Breaks up fibrinogen.
Yeah. And resolved it, or, fixed it with that. I started taking it. I did get really bad seasonal allergies and like sinus clogging and things like that. I started taking serrapeptase, just gone.
Yeah. And I want to throw this in there. So I interviewed someone once, not even for a podcast, like on the side, I talked to the guy who runs the company of the enzymes that I was getting before you made yours. And he has horrible asthma. And they have like a dosage thing, like a certain, depending on your ailment, like how much you should take. Like people with cancer, but in his case, he has like chronic asthma. And when he takes a large amount of these systemic enzymes, he has no problems whatsoever. So I'm not surprised that it helps with your breathing in that situation.
Yeah, it's really shocking. And that's one thing I love about it, especially with a lot of supplements. it's hard to know like if it's working or what it's doing. Like with serrapeptase, you can notice it really quick, especially if it's something like the sinuses or the brain fog. And obviously if you had asthma,
let me chime in though and say this
Mhm.
though. A miraculous thing did happen. So when he gave me these, and years ago when I first started taking it for that problem I mentioned, I thought I didn't even know really what it was. He was like, "Here, these are for the fibrinogen," and again, I was just like, "Whatever, I'll just do it." Like I didn't really look too much into it. So it's like after 30 days, my fibrocystic breast that I used to have disappeared.
Wow.
But then here was the crazy thing: I had about a couple years prior dropped like a big plastic mug on my foot, and it was right in between my little toe and my second toe there, and in the little crux, and there felt like it never fully healed. Like there always felt to be like a little knot or some kind of garbage, something in there. And I remember being like, damn, this thing is like, how long is this? Like, this has been like a long time. I dropped that thing on my foot like a couple years ago. Okay, so forgot about that. And then in 30 days, I all of a sudden felt my left foot, and I was like, what's going on? And I feel that thing. And then it was gone, and it's been gone ever since because it broke it up, scar tissue. That's another reason to take it if people have had that, right? Those issues. And so I really felt that, and I've literally, it's completely gone. But for 2 years, this persistent, it wasn't like every day I'm like in massive pain, but it was just like annoying little, like, what's that? Like, why is that spot still weird? Like come and go. And then it completely like, it's almost like whatever I felt, I think was feeling it being broken up apart and dissipated.
No, yeah, that's incredible. And that's something that a lot of people report back, that things like little cysts on their skin, just like different, like, gunky, I shouldn't use this word, but like cellular buildup that shouldn't be there will just be gone. And the way it actually works and why it does that. So originally, and I say originally because now it is vegan, it's created in a lab now for the supplement version. But what it was in theory was a enzyme created by the Japanese silkworm, and its purpose is to dissolve the cocoon of the silkworm without actually harming the silkworm. So that's why it selectively breaks down non-living protein that shouldn't be there. So it's amazing. Like, so you take it on an empty stomach. It has to be on an empty stomach.
Yes.
Otherwise it will just potentially digest your food, gets into your bloodstream, works systemically, goes all throughout your body, and breaks down these problematic proteins wherever they are. What's really interesting is they've done studies on it, and it seems to selectively, like if you have like a wound, like a fresh wound, it seems to selectively work on like those areas, which is really, really cool.
And it's interesting you say that, because I was asking Dr. Forsman once just about this to explain it to people. The difference between systemic enzymes, proteolytic enzymes, what we're talking about, versus like digestive enzymes, right? And he described it the way, like, this is meant to be taken on an empty stomach so that it gets in your blood and digests you, instead of your food, right? It does, it's like acts like a brush cleaner almost through your blood in a way. And honestly, I went and got tested again 3 months after doing a course of it years ago, and all the levels went immediately back to normal. The only thing I have learned about it is, yes, if you're coming up on a surgery, you might want to stop it 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after. Like, there's certain things, of course, you want to look out for, but for the most part, it's been a game changer.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I'm glad you're making it.
I know. So the making of it process was so enlightening and fascinating, because I always thought that maybe I wanted to make supplements, mostly because I am so overly concerned with what I put in my body, and I'm very suspicious of the supplement industry.
Yes.
And especially now that I've made my own, I'm like just a million times more suspicious. Because there's not regulation. There's basically like pharmaceuticals, which are very intensely regulated. And then there's this like supplement wasteland of just like anything goes. I was reading a study the other day about, they tested, I think 30 different bottles, like types of melatonin, encompassing like, 15 to 20 brands. And the range of the amount of melatonin in the product compared to what it said was shocking. Like it went from like, a couple percent of what they said to like almost like 400%, I think. So it's just really, really a problem. And then on top of that, with the serrapeptase specifically, so we're talking about how it has to enter the bloodstream. It's complicated because the enzyme itself is actually very delicate. So it has to get past your stomach, has to survive your stomach acid and make it into the small intestine. And so a lot of the serrapeptases on the market use these enteric coated capsules to do that. And the problem with that is they don't disclose the ingredients in the enteric coated capsules. And so it's most likely, like plastic related compounds, like things you don't want in your body. So,
but does having it non-enteric coated affect the fact that it can bypass and get to your blood?
Well, yeah. So that's the crux of the issue. So I was working with my partner, Scott, who's amazing at MD Logic. Awesome. Yeah, he's amazing. And so we were trying to formulate a form of serrapeptase that would not have these enteric coatings, that would actually get where we needed it to go. And so we were able to use an acid resistant capsule that's made of like hypermellose, like very benign plant-based material. And it survives the stomach acid. You can test it yourself. You can put one in a thing of vinegar and, watch it like not dissolve, and then put it into a glass of water and it will dissolve. So basically, once it reaches the alkaline state of the small intestine, it releases. And then on top of that, it was a whole journey because I'm so intense. Like I don't want any problematic fillers. Like I want it to be just the cleanest and best of best. And so because of the sticky nature of the enzyme, we had to work really hard to find a lubricating agent that we could use in the capsules that like I was okay with ingesting. So all it has in it is like a tiny, tiny amount of MCT oil, nothing to be concerned about like breaking your fast or anything like that. And if anything, it probably helps with assimilation into your body. And then on top of that, we test for all the things like heavy metals, mold, toxins, and it's in a glass bottle, which I am so proud of because there's not many supplement companies making theirs in glass. It's so funny. So we were like developing it and I was like, you know what? Like, I was like, I know this is the best, but like, I really hope it is the best. Like, I hope once we make it, that I like really see the difference. And I can tell you like from the bottom of my heart, I have tried so many serrapeptase brands and like it's the best. So I take it every single day of my life.
Yeah, I do too. But now when I'm finished with mine, I'll be taking yours now that you're offering it. I still have boxes left of the other one, but I am so happy to hear this. And then also too, I mean, another important supplement you make that I take as well, which is usually a daily thing. It's really important, especially for thyroid patients, but really everyone, which is magnesium. So let's talk about this because yours is a mix. And tell us how you developed this and why you decided it's called Magnesium 8.
Yes. So on the nutrition side of things, so like nutritional supplements, I'm like in my dream world, we would get all of our nutrients from food. Like that's just the way it would be. It can be a little bit difficult today with our modern farming practices and our soils and our diets to get adequate nutrients, especially something like magnesium. So magnesium is involved. They used to say in over 300 enzymatic processes, but now some studies are saying over 600 enzymatic processes. So almost everything that you do requires magnesium. And our soils, historically, we would get it from the soils. So from the food we ate from the soil. And our soils are so depleted of magnesium. So in the past 100 years, they've estimate that the soils have gone down by about 90%. And then on top of that, to make it even worse, so pesticides in the soil actually chelate magnesium. So they like attach the magnesium. So you might actually be taking in magnesium in a toxic form with pesticides. So I think it's just so important to get our magnesium levels up. It's helps with muscle recovery and stress and relaxation and motility. If you struggle with that, especially people with hypothyroidism and constipation, I mean, that's been something like the bane of my existence. There's just so many benefits to it, even like blood sugar regulation and things like that. So I, again, wanted to make the best form on the market, and there are so many different forms of magnesium. So we decided to put in 8 forms, all in their most bioavailable form for assimilation. And it's just with no potentially problematic fillers. And so I just think it's really important that everybody, I mean, I don't like
and
to
a
make
lot of people
statements.
a lot of people do take magnesium in general like, because they feel like, okay, this is going to help with my bowels. Like that's often a thing if people are like, hey, I'm having trouble. And someone's like, take magnesium. You know what I mean? So it's usually the one thing that people kind of know of it for.
Yeah. Oh, it's a game changer for me. Like I said, like, especially in my hypothyroid journey, the thing I know people get all different symptoms from hypothyroidism. The thing that bothered me the most was the constipation. Like it wrecked me. Like I definitely developed a complex around this. Like I can't even tell you how many therapist sessions have been spent with me talking about my like fear of constipation, like literally fear, like actual fear.
I get it, because also it was so horrible for me that at the time, like laxatives didn't do anything. I went for colonics. I did all the things and nothing worked. Like at that point, nothing worked. And so once you get past it, when you become unhypothyroid, you still like, if there's any point in my life where I randomly get constipated, like I'll cry. It's the worst thing. I can't handle it. And I feel so sad. If you're out there and you're constipated, there is solutions, but this is one of them.
That like hits home so much. Like, and it's something that unless you've been in that experience, I don't think you understand. And then also like, I mean, it can seem silly, like, oh, like, what does it matter if you're constipated? But like the toxicity feeling of it. And I think that the worst part of it, the fear surrounding it is, for me, it felt like, it's like I was carrying things I didn't want to carry. It was like there was something in me that I couldn't get out.
Yes.
So I just felt so stuck.
Yes. And you feel stuffed. There's something
you can't run away.
Wrong. Yeah. It's awful.
You can't run away from I was like, I can't run away from like what's inside of me. Like I can't get it out. And I will say, it was not magnesium that cured that for me. It was when I went on thyroid med. And I don't even want to say cured because I still have a sensitive GI tract, but when I went on thyroid medication, that was the thing that really got my bowels flowing, which was amazing. I was like, it was like this.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you can take magnesium as you have not solved a thyroid problem yet, but it won't work as well. Or you have to take extreme amounts to sort of force it, which may not be great. But then again, once you correct the thyroid by whatever means that is, whether you naturally do it or through thyroid hormone replacement like us, yes. And that's how I know, like I did an experiment during the pandemic where I thought, you know what, everyone's locked up, so I'll try to get off thyroid hormone again.
Yeah, I remember that.
One of the first awful things was the horrible constipation that showed up after a month. For the first month, I was like, hey, I feel pretty good. And then I immediately started to get thicker. And then I started to get tired. I would wake up with puffy face. And it was the mornings that were like, because I love waking up and having elimination, I have some coffee, and I like that process of getting that removed from my body. And that was extremely frustrating. That was, again, TMI, but we're talking health. So it would be like a little pellet or something. It was horrible. And I was like, oh no, what's happening? And again, that's when I was like, okay. And then I went back on my thyroid medication, and literally within 48 hours, it was like perfection, back to normal. It makes the difference in the world. And that is why it's a horrible symptom, one of the worst symptoms, but a major one and a prevalent one in hypothyroidism.
I'm so glad you shared that. I remember when you were telling me that you were, going to be experimenting with that. And I was really curious how that was going to manifest for you. Yeah, I remember when I was like at the worst, my worst with it, literally the entirety of my day, I would have so much anxiety going to bed about if I was going to have a bowel movement in the morning. And then when I woke up, whether or not I had a bowel movement basically determined if I was like zen that day or like super stressed and like upset. So I just, my heart goes out to people who are struggling with this. I
also want to say to people who are struggling though, because I do know some people out there in the world, like friends preferably, who have issues with this. And I keep telling them like, hey, this is not normal. But these are also the people that will like wake up and be like, just jump in the shower and like go out the door. And you're like, whoa. Hey, give yourself a minute. You know what I mean? Give everything a minute. People aren't taking the time and the wherewithal. It's almost like if you're struggling with sleep, you have to take the time and take steps and put things in action. And the same thing goes with that, which is why I would never just wake up and run out the door. You know what I mean? Because I know like, oh God, and who knows where I'm going to be. And I want to have that time. So, I make sure that if I have to be somewhere, I take that extra time in the morning. I'll wake up extra early if that's what it means to have my elimination, you know what I mean, happen versus just, waking up and being, oh, I'm late. So it's, or like whatever the stress is. So I think people just need to spend more time, giving it a go, give yourself a moment. Even if you don't drink coffee, drink some hot water or something, go sit on the toilet, read a book, see if something's going to happen, but like give it a moment, give yourself the time and the wherewithal. A lot of people don't.
I'm so glad you said that. Because I am so intense just in general with my self-care and honoring what I need to take time for. And I know that in order, because part of me, I think for a while was like, because I, at one point in time before my hypothyroidism and health issues, I could be that type that could like get up at any time and just like go and be like sleep deprived and like do the things. And for a while I was like, oh, I feel like I'm not resilient, not being that way. But now the way I feel, I try to just treat myself with kindness. And I know that in order to be the best version of myself and do everything I want to do in life, like self-care has to come first. And it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's nourishing. So I really embrace it and honor it, like so much. And I will say, I'll add to that little routine. Squatty potties are really, really helpful.
Yeah. So especially when you're short. Because, I'm short. And so feet don't often touch the ground on like certain things, couches, whatever. And sometimes if there's a high toilet, but having the squatty potty, which is basically, if you're listening and you don't know, is like this sort of plastic, sort of elevated thing that you sort of slide under the toilets, U-shaped. And it kind of positions your feet in that natural primal squatting motion, and gives you sort of a little bit more leverage and a little bit more of that positioning that's, again, more primal to how we would have done it in the wild. And they are extremely helpful and they're very cheap and it's an incredible tool. That's a good biohacking tool right there, is a squatty potty.
And can I share? I have to share a story. So I recently went to Austin, and so when I go on a toilet now and there's not a squatty potty, I'm like, what is this? Like, how do people do that? So like in Austin, I realized, so this is a travel hack. The wine, the ice buckets they have, like for the wine, are like the perfect size for like normal squatty pottiness. So I would just put that in the bathroom upside down and use that. And every night housekeeping would like take it away. And then I was just thinking about housekeeping, how they're probably like, why is there an upside down like like ice
they're telling stories.
The
they're like, this one room.
I know. So yeah, you
know,
can
that is a great hack, or anything at that level, or you could just, like get a cup, put your suitcase in there and double your feet against it. Yeah. So back to the magnesium. So magnesium 8 and Serrapeptase are your two supplements. These are two amazing supplements that, again, I'm not surprised are the first ones that you chose to do, because they are like life changers.
Yeah, they really, really are. And so, like we said, like even with the constipation, like just in general, having your magnesium levels up can be amazing for supporting, motility and all those other health benefits. And we need to get you set up with a coupon code. Do you want one of those for your audience?
We'll do that. And so by the time I release this, we'll have that, and I'll make sure I put that in the show notes.
Do you want to make it L? What do you normally use for your codes?
L, ELLE, and
L.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll make it L, and that'll get you 10% off site-wide at AvalonX.us. So AVALONX.us. Coupon code L.
Yay. And then eventually, then I'll set it up and put it under the discounts on my website as well. But yeah, I use it. And again, it's a great combination. And the Serrapeptase is also a game changer. I'm so glad you came out with that. It's really, I didn't know about it again until I had that issue, and realized how important it is. And also just in the anti-aging world. Like, I mean, my doctor is probably 57, 58 at this point. He takes a maintenance dose himself every morning just for anti-aging purposes.
Yeah.
So, this is really great. Well, we could go on forever, but everybody, you've got to go to MelanieAvalon.com. That's MELANIEAVA. Avalon.com.
Yes, you got it.
And you can find out everything about there. Subscribe to her podcast. Check that out. She's always also follow her on Instagram. She's got a great thread, and I love all the research you do. I love all the things you bring to the forefront, and I love all of the biohacking you do on yourself, so you can share it with people and tell us your results. And some of these things we've discussed today, I'm really intrigued by. So thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with, or any other last biohacking tip you thought of?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to you. Everything that you're doing is so incredible. I don't even know. I should look back and see like when because I was following your work for years. Like, honestly, Elle, because I was talking about my biohacking journey and health journey, like you're one of the first people that I was listening to and following, and your books, and you just help so many people. And I love how approachable and real you are. And
Oh,
you're
thanks.
just really doing a service to the world. I'm so happy we're friends.
Yeah, it's been, you know what? I'm thinking like, because my book came out in 2016, but then your book, when did your book come out?
2000, I self-published it in 2014, but in stores 2018.
So it was
Um,
probably around then, probably
but
17 or 18, maybe, because I
were you
interviewed you.
podcasting before the
Yes,
book
I was
though?
doing the Primal
Okay.
Blueprint. And so
Okay.
I
So
interviewed
yeah,
you about that. And I think that's how we first sort of met,
I, I guess.
or
Yeah.
technically spoke, was probably on that
Or
podcast.
did you come on my show first?
You know what? I don't know. All right.
I
We'll
don't
have
even
to just
remember.
dig back and do some research.
Let's go
It's been a
look.
while. And no, I love seeing as well. What's so nice about, there's like levels in the paleo industry. Like I would say, Mark and Rob and Abel James, maybe on that one level of generation. And then it's like you, me, and other people, right? You know what I mean? It's so nice to see. I was looking up a couple the other day, Aaron and Sarit. They started, a podcast or something years ago, and now I see, they've blown up, and it's so great to see where everyone's gone and the longevity of everyone. It's just so nice to have such a network of awesome fellow health authors and people out there doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I love this community so much, and that's actually, you're asking me if there's anything else. Something I end on with my show is like gratitude and mindset and everything, and I just.
Yes.
I can't overestimate the importance of like kindness and gratitude. Like if we were just kind and like just thought about what we were grateful for, you can't be in a state of fear and gratitude at the same time. So I just try to really stay in that moment as much as I can. So I'm super grateful for this moment with you right now.
Absolutely. Me too. All right. Go check out Melanie's stuff. I'll put everything in the show notes to connect, and also on the products, and everyone else. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/LRUS for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.